Oh, hey, how you guys doing? It has been an exhausting day, and I am almost exhausted. Catch you later. Hey, what's up, everybody? And I want to welcome you guys back to the shop. And if you haven't figured it out by now, yes, today we are going to be building the exhaust system for the 66 Galaxy behind me. So I'm going to get everything set up, prepped, and ready to go, and I'll probably start rolling the cameras here real soon. But before I do, I want to tell you guys, as I always do, I want to thank you guys for following along, especially, like I said again, I want to thank you guys for the comments, the likes, and the people that have subscribed to the channel. So anyway, if you haven't already, please, as I always tell you, please jump down there and hit the subscribe button so we can keep this thing moving. And who knows? We'll see what we get into today. But anyway, I am going to get the camera set up, and we're going to start building an exhaust, a 3-inch stainless steel exhaust for this Galaxy here. So I will see you guys here shortly. So the very first thing I have to do to the exhaust system, and this is no different than the exhaust that I built for Kevin C10. If you guys watch that video, this is going to be the start of this exhaust is going to be much the same. Where the first thing that I have to do is get the width of this X brace kind of laid out. So I pulled my measurement on the car underneath from basically where the headers come down, and then the pipes are going to roll. There's a cross member for the transmission, and I've got an exact spot where I want these things to hit. So I lay this out on the table, and as you can see, I've got a center line mark here that goes from this edge of the table to here. I've got the X eyeballed and clamped in on center, and I also have the outside lines that is center line, and I'll get to this other line at a different point where I'm going to use that on the straight edge here to get this thing mocked up pretty close. So I've got to get these pipes cleaned up, and it looks like I'm going to have to add to these to get the width that I'm needing. So anyway, I'm going to set the cameras up, and I'm going to get this thing all prepped, and I'll get this section tacked together. Like I said, this is the absolute ground zero of the exhaust system. So everything will build off of this. So anyway, I'll cut back in here shortly, and we'll go from there. All right, I got the X pipe all welded, and you could see what I was talking about earlier, where these reliefs in the transmission cross member, that's pretty much where I wanted those pipes to come through. So I've got that sitting about where I want it. I've got it back far enough to where I think it's going to give the drive shaft clearance on the suspension travel. So the next thing is these flex hoses. I tend to use these underneath the car. Now, what I will tell you, these things are not super flexible. And I think basically what they do is they allow for some thermal expansion. And I would like to think too that it keeps the exhaust system from being so rigid to where you get some type of transient vibration noise that can travel from one end to the other. So anyway, these have got to go in next. And what I'll probably end up doing is I'm going to extend these pipes about 3 inches, and then I'll put these on and weld them in place. So that'll probably be next. But what I have come to the realization is the pipes coming off of these headers are going to be extremely tricky. And I pretty much am going to have to do a lot of rolling offsets. And what's going to help me with that are these things right here. Now, I've got 4 sets of these and I'm hoping I have enough, but these are pie cuts and you buy these things, they'll stack to make an actual 90. And these, I believe, are on a 15-degree angle. And I have made these before where I've made them up to 20, 25 degrees if I didn't need such a tight radius. So, like I said, I've got 4 sets of these. I don't know if they're going to be enough, so I may end up having to cut a few more. But one of the issues that I am kind of running into is I need this suspension loaded so I can get the steering linkage actually pulled up where it's going to go, because the last thing I want to do is fit everything with the suspension unloaded and then put the car on the ground and then the steering linkage is hit. So with that being said, as you can see, I've got a Camaro body in the back that's going to have to be moved, and then I'm going to have to move this car over on the red 4-post. So I'm going to put the camera down for a bit and try to rearrange the shop and get this thing set up and ready. So hopefully, I don't know if I'll finish it up today, but I definitely will be back, and hopefully I'll have everything set up on the other lift, and we'll get back after this exhaust. So we'll see you guys after a bit. Okay, I am back, and as you can see, I've got the car moved over on the red 4-post lift, and I went ahead. I said earlier I needed to extend the pipe and weld these flex hoses on. I went ahead and done that. Those are all welded in, so I've got the X pipe back where I want it, and now it's time to build the connecting pipes from the header to these flex hoses. So I'm going to start with the passenger side. That way it's going to be a little bit simpler, and that way I can at least get one side locked in, and then I'll fit this driver's side, which is going to be a little bit tricky because of the pitman arm and the clutch linkage. But anyway, I've done a couple of things ahead of time. One, I've made this 45-degree fitting here. I've extended the pipe, and one of the things that I did figure out, I kind of stumbled onto this. I bought a little small bead roller, and I thought, I'm going to see if it'll bead roll this stainless. And as you can see, it did. And it surprisingly did a fairly good job of it. So the interesting thing is this bead roll, there's a large gap right here on these flex hoses. And what this will end up doing is when I put that up there, it'll have a less of a gap. So I won't have quite such a large weld. So as you can see, that piece is going to go there. It's going to fit pretty close. I went ahead also and I made this piece up. This is what's going to come off of the header. I almost have this welded out. And as I was saying earlier, again, these are pie cuts. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do, since I have these 2 pieces made and I've got a couple of pieces over on the bench, I'm going to take you guys over, and for this week's tech tip, I am going to show you how to make your own pie cuts. So anyway, let me go over here. Let's get set up, and I'll show you guys how I do these. Okay, so the material that we are using, as you guys are aware, this is 3-inch stainless steel exhaust pipe. This is, I think, an 18 gauge. And as you can see, I have it clamped down to the table. And notice I do have the swedge off the other end of the table, so it won't throw our measurements off. So basically, the way I like to start this is I want to put me a reference line on each side of this pipe. And since this is 3-inch, what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to go and I'm going to mark on both 4 sides of this pipe. I'm just going to mark up 1.5 inches. I'm going to put me a line here, and you guys will see what I'm using this line for here shortly. I'm just going to run me a line right there. Turn it 180 and get the other mark on this side. Now, these are pretty forgiving, and this line does not have to be super exact. This is just going to be a reference. I'm going to show you what we'll use this line for. So we're going to move back here to the horizontal bandsaw, and I'll show you how to set up. Okay, now I'm going to set the angle on this horizontal bandsaw, and trust me, this is a very old saw, and I had a lot of trouble yesterday whenever I was playing around with this. My blade keeps popping off. So maybe time to retire this old thing. But anyway, I got an angle finder. And now another thing that I did notice, I've set this at 15 degrees and then I stepped it up to a 22.5. And as you can see, it made a lot larger pie, a lot larger cut. So you can always play with this angle and figure out just how much of a radius. If you just need a small offset, these work pretty good when they're a little bit larger on the angle. So in this case here, I'm going to set this at about 10 degrees. That's about where I found that this thing is kind of in its happy spot.
All I'm going to do is put this on this backstop and then line up with my edge on the screen starter. So that looks pretty good. We're going to lock it down.
Okay, now that I have my angle set and I've got the reference lines on the pipe, one of the last things that I like to do is, this is just 1.5 inch square piece of steel. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to set my pipe in here, run my clamp up. And this is what, this will show you what those reference marks are for. So I'm just going to set that right there, and I'm going to put that on the mark. I'm going to scoop this thing back because I'm just going to eyeball where my bandsaw blade is going to hit. So now the first cut will be pretty much your straight face, and then you'll have your first cut at your angle. So we're going to lock this down here. We're going to turn this on and cut it. Okay, now that the first cut's made, now this being the base, these are actually really good, useful pieces to have, especially if you're starting your 90. So the next thing, we're just going to loosen this thing up. We're going to turn it 180 degrees. Once again, I'm just going to eyeball it here, and I just want the back thickness. I'm going to eyeball where approximately where that blade's going to come through. And try not to get it too thick. Once again, I'm going to use my little guide. I'm going to put this beside it. I'm going to line up my lines. And I'm going to say, I think I like that right there. I'm going to snug it down, and we're going to cut the second one. Okay, hopefully you guys found that useful. So what I'll tell you, like I said, you can always play around with the angles. You can mess around with it until you get the desired radius and the angles that you're going to want for whatever your application may be. So this is just kind of a comparison. This was the last one that I just cut that you just saw. This is one that you buy out of the box. And as you can see, this one's a lot smaller. So I could still dial this in, although these will work very well. And one thing that I will tell you, depending on how much it costs, these things, when you buy these, I think they're anywhere from 45 to 65 bucks a set. Now, if you can justify buying them for your project, that's great. But if not, you have to do things the old-fashioned way. And once again, it's like everything else, it's cost efficient. So whatever works for your application and your pocket. So me, I like to build as much stuff as I can, so I tend to cut these. So anyway, I'm going to get back on the car. Like I said, hopefully you guys, hopefully this information is well received and it will come to use at some point in your fabrication career. So I'm going to jump back on the car and get back after this exhaust. So we'll see you guys here in just a bit. Okay, as you can see, I got this section of pipe completely welded out. I went ahead and took the liberty and I put the O2 bung in here. It's welded. So I think the next thing I'm gonna do is, hopefully, I'm not sure you won't be able to see it from that camera angle, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna snug this up against the header flange, get that thing clamped in and get it positioned on this flex hose. Then I'm gonna set up and make about 2 or 3 welds on this flex hose to kind of lock this side in. So I'm gonna do that part next, and then I'm gonna continue fabbing out this other side. So I'll set the cameras up and I'll keep on plugging away at this thing. All right, the passenger side is completely welded out, flex hose. I've got that snugged up, and we'll look back. The X pipe is, I've got it centered on the drive shaft. Now, the drive shaft is offset in the car, and you pretty much, for looks, you don't want to offset it to the center of the car because then it would look crooked with the drive shaft. So that is pretty well in place. I'm happy with that. So now we have the fun side. And I had told you guys earlier that the Pitman arm is going to be a challenge, as well as the clutch fork, but I think the clutch fork is high enough that I'll end up rolling this around here and then roll it up into here. So anyway, my plan is to tackle this side next. So hopefully all goes well. I'd like to get this side done today, and when I do, I'll cut back in. But in the meantime, I'll set the cameras up, do some more time lapse. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the music, and I'll see you whenever I get this side ready. All right, well, that side actually fit a lot easier. It wasn't near as difficult as I thought it was going to be, and typically that's what happens. Every time I think something's going to be that hard, it seems to be a little bit easier. But anyway, I've got everything tacked together. I'm gonna, here in just a second, I'm gonna rotate the wheel and make sure I've got plenty of clearance. But for what I can tell here, everything looks like it's going to clearance well. I'll end up taking this piece up to the vise, and I'll go ahead and get all this welded out. But I think before I'll do that, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make these about 3 tacks on this collar here. And once I get that stuff welded out, then I'll bring it in here, bolt it in, and then I'll do the same thing that I did on the passenger side. I'll make 3 or 4 tacks on this, and I'll end up welding that out, pull the X pipe and all. But all in all, I'm pretty pleased. Like I said, we just have a little bit of I'm gonna test the steering linkage, and we'll see what happens. So I'll be back. It's time to wake up. Rooster says so. It's 3:29 in the afternoon. So anyway, take 2, because the first one, it cleared, but it was just barely. So I reworked a couple of these pieces to get me a little bit more clearance through here. So I'm gonna go up there and roll the wheel. Hopefully. All right, we get it. Hopefully it clears this time. Did it clear? I don't know. I'm going to have to watch the video to see, but hopefully it did. Anyway, if it did, I'm going to tack these up and then continue to get this piece welded out and do whatever I said a minute ago. Okay, I managed to get the driver's side all welded out, as you can see above. I've got it all tacked up. I ended up reworking that area a couple of times to get enough clearance and rolled it. Also, as you can see, I went ahead, I've got that header pipe extension, we'll call that. I have it welded to the flex hose. So for the most part, from the headers down to the X pipe, this is pretty well fully welded out, and I have it sitting about where I want it. Additionally, as you can see, I had to send the clutch back in to the company out in California. It was ACT, Advanced Clutch Technology. Basically what they had found was they had never had one of these clutches built for a top loader with this large input shaft. So I had to send that back to California. They reworked the part, sent it back, graded them. They paid for all the shipping, didn't have to worry about it. So anyway, the next step, we're going to try to get the mufflers put in. And as you can see, I've got a muffler sitting back there on a stand. And on the top of the muffler, I put 2 3/4 inch pieces of, it's 1 by 2 strips. And I have that sandwiched up against the floor of the car to give me some clearance. So as you can see, it's going to pretty much take some more pie cuts to get a transition from this X pipe to the muffler. And also, we may end up, I'm going to kind of play around with how I want to do this, but we did get some oval pipe, and I've got some oval to round transitions that I'm going to see which way makes more sense. So this car sits pretty high off the ground, so I'm not terribly worried about ground clearance. The biggest thing for me is the look of the exhaust system. So when you look at the car sitting across the parking lot, the last thing you want to do is see the exhaust system hanging too low. So I'm going to try to tuck it up pretty much in the up close to the drive shaft where I can get that thing rolled, these pipes rolled. So hopefully I'm going to work on the driver's side, and once I get that, then I'll make a brace back there, and it'll pretty well lock this exhaust system in. Then hopefully it's just a repetitive. So anyway, I'm going to set the cameras up and get to work, and I'll cut back in a little bit later. See you guys in a bit. I think I've got this side fit up pretty well. As you can see in the upper corner, I've had these two pieces in. I believe they're going to fit rather well. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to weld out these two sets of pie cuts. And if you notice, the mufflers are painted black. I don't know if they're stainless or if they're a carbon steel muffler, but I've got to dress those and prep those. But I think I am going to get these two pieces welded out. I'll probably fit these two back in the car and make a couple of spot welds. And then I think the system is going to be symmetrical enough that I can just about duplicate these two pieces. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. So I don't think I'm going to film much of this. And in fact, I think the next time I jump in, I'll probably wait until I have both the mufflers hung and maybe try to start working on the rear brackets for the muffler, the hangers. And then once I get to that point, I think we'll start doing cutouts. So anyway, I'm going to leave it with you guys for a little bit, and I'll be back. Okay, as you can see behind me, I got both mufflers mounted. I've got all of this, basically from the header to the backside of the muffler, completely welded out. Now, on the backside of the mufflers, I've also added a small section of pipe, and I use V-bands, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But the next thing that I need to do to this section of the exhaust is we've got some electric cutouts that we're going to use. And we've chosen, or I have basically, is I want to use these. These are QTP brand, which I tend to use QTPs because they seem to work a lot better. Also, we went with the oval style, as you can see. Now, it came with two of these, and these are about this long. I cut these off at a 45 degree, and then I sit here, if you look, hopefully I can get this. I basically coped this thing so it fits on the pipe really well. So one thing I ended up doing before I pulled this exhaust system out of the car, I located, and I've got some marks up here on these 45 degree angles where I want these to mount. So the next thing I'm going to do, and it's going to take a little while, but I'm going to get these things marked completely out, get my holes cut, and get these completely tigged out. So once I'm done there, then I'm going to end up putting the exhaust system back underneath the car. And for the most part, I'm pretty much, with the exception of a couple of hangers that I have ordered, I'm pretty much done with the exhaust system for now. I'm not going to build the tail light hoop, or excuse me, the tail shaft, the tail pipe, and the rear end hoops for a bit yet. The main thing I wanted to do on this was get the exhaust system there, get the O2 bung sensor in it, and get it to where I can at least get the engine started. So anyway, I'm going to get the camera set up, and we'll start rolling some film, and I'm going to get this done, and we'll get it put back in the car. So I'll see you guys in just a little bit. so that's pretty much going to wrap things up for the 66 Galaxy exhaust system. So as you saw, I do have V-bands welded onto the backside of the mufflers. All the hangers are there. They're all there. So the V-bands will make it easier whenever I build out the tailpipe sections. That will be how I fasten those. So I don't have to pull this system back out and make any more welds. This part is complete. The O2 bung is there, and that was the big thing. So that will allow me to do the first startup. So what's up next for this car? As you can see with this big wad of mess here is I have a lot of wiring to do on the fuel injection system as well as the ignition system. So don't know for say that I'll film all of that, but if I do find some things that are interesting, I may try to grab the camera set up and capture some of that I can share with you guys at a later video on this car. So with that being said, I think I'm going to close this video out, and I know a lot of people are wanting to see some updates on Kevin's truck. Throughout this video, you guys kind of saw his truck was on the other lift that's sitting right here beside me, and it is so close to being done. So I am going to close out by doing a walk around on his truck, and I'm not going to show you a ton because I was really kind of hoping to do a reveal on this truck, and I still may do that. So anyway, I want to, as I always do, I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I thank you guys for following along. And as I always tell you, I hope to see you on the next one.